Hello, everyone. Welcome back to Sideline Sports. No JB Ellis, no Eric Wilson, but you do have Jon Shearer, the most important face, most important place.
Oh, I haven't missed you saying that.
There's so much going on. By the way, before we get to any sports, guys, what's your favorite Halloween candy? Like, is there a certain Halloween candy that you hate, and then that's your favorite? I guess. Like, give me one of each.
Let's go to Bryce. I mean, he's a little bit of a guest this week. I mean, Bryce is a not only a friend of the show, part of the Sideline Sports network of people that we work with, and we are lucky to work with everybody. So first of all, Bryce, welcome, John. You didn't even how can you not welcome Bryce? What's up with that?
I mean, Halloween candy is pretty important. No offense, Bryce, but just
all right. I see how it is.
All right, candy,
Bryce. Bryce, what is? Let's go with you first then. What do you got?
Well, listen, I absolutely despise candy corn, so I can tell you what I hate.
Hey, I'm with you on that, my man.
Yeah, candy corn is a no-go.
Disgusting.
But a favorite, I mean, I don't particularly have a favorite Halloween candy because I kind of eat the generic candy that you eat during the other 364 days of the year.
Well, you got like Twix, you got Skittles, you got Snickers.
I think a better
Reese's.
question is, John, what is your favorite candy to get on Halloween?
Oh, man. I mean, I don't tip.
Because these candies, you can get them year round. It's just
right, but
when you get on Halloween, which one are you most excited about?
It's more
You're
special.
like, oh my God, it's Halloween. I got this candy. That's the question.
I mean, for me, like whenever I reach in there and I see a Reese's peanut butter cup, nice Reese's peanut butter cup. I mean, contrary to Dan Orlovsky's crushing Reese's peanut butter cups, which he loves
blasphemous.
the Dolphins. He dotes on the Dolphins, but he hates Reese's peanut butter cups. It seems, bad juju to you, Dan Orlovsky, for knocking Reese's peanut butter cups. You can't knock Reese's peanut butter cups. That's like hating mac and cheese. Like, you just can't do that. That's number one on my list for Halloween candy. And then, I mean, like, I guess, like, I don't really like getting, like, the Skittles or anything like that that's really hard on your teeth.
I think,
like,
John,
the milk
you just like
duds.
chocolate. You like chocolate-related candies.
Like, I don't like my Halloween candy to be, like, chewy and hard to eat. I just want it to be simple, like a Reese's peanut butter cup. It goes down smooth. Snickers goes down smooth. But Skittles and stuff like that, like, it takes a while to eat. It's too much work.
I'm with you on that. No. You guys are sleeping on the best candy, though. And first of all, I agree with Bryce. I despise candy corn. I think it's disgusting. Second of all, John, I don't know if Kayla is watching. She's probably not. She's probably studying, which is fine. She's with you. She's a Reese's peanut butter fan. She loves peanut butter and chocolate. So I'm not denying it's good. It's just not my favorite. The best by far, though, I don't know how nobody's mentioned it. It's a Kit Kat, and it's not even a discussion. Kit Kats are just the greatest thing ever. They're probably my favorite candy, period. And lastly, John, I do agree with you on the point of the Skittle and all those. Even M&Ms, I got to be honest. I don't need them. I think they're overrated. Skittles overrated.
Now if I get a peanut butter, M&Ms in there,
that's
I'm gonna be happy.
I still think overall those candies are a little overrated. That's all.
I think
the bar candies, those bar candies are usually better than.
I think Kit Kat is like
M&Ms
the Harold Baines, where it's going to get in the Hall of Fame or it's already in there, but it really shouldn't be. I feel like it's like an average candy that gets more love than it should.
Always picking on me and finding a problem with what I have to say. This is the Jon Shearer way.
Well, I have a problem with your Giants, too. There was a lot, actually, that happened at the trade deadline. Your Giants didn't do anything.
And I'll happily talk about that. But
the Atlanta Falcons did something.
They sure did.
And I have to ask Bryce, who is a Falcons fan.
He's not only a Falcons fan, he's a Falcons reporter for us, basically. The man knows his Falcons better than anybody else. Don't just call him a fan. He deserves more credit than that.
Tell people a little bit about where you're from and your station, and before we get to all that, because I mean, there are fans really haven't seen you in a while, so maybe we have a lot of new fans that maybe not know Bryce yet. Before we get to Atlanta.
Yeah, man. I'm from Georgia, from Fayetteville, Georgia, which is like really close to the city of Atlanta. Lived there basically my entire life. Just last year, I moved to Kentucky to take a job as a news producer at Fox 56 in Lexington. So I've been doing that for the past year. Coming up, I just reached my 1 year about a month ago.
Congratulations.
Well, congratulations, sir.
Appreciate it. Yeah. So, and we got another year to go before, I start looking into new ventures, but Yeah, man. Obviously, like you said, cover Falcons, cover Hawks primarily. Can really do all teams, but that was the teams I focus on in my free time. And obviously, since I'm up here in Lexington now, I'm technically I'm aware of what's happening at University of Kentucky and everything that happens with them.
You just choose. You're not focused on it. You still, you're an Atlanta guy at heart, and that's fine.
And I had to talk nice about the Atlanta Hawks last night on the Sports Arena. As part of the segment, that was what I was given. I had to talk nice about them. It made me sick. I feel like I ate bad Halloween candy. I had to talk nice about the Hawks.
John,
there's not really anything nice
let me stop you right
about,
there. Is your goal today to cause a problem with everybody on screen except for yourself?
That's how I live my life. It's like Austin Powers. I live dangerously.
I feel like you came after me with the Kit Kat thing. You're coming after Bryce with his Atlanta. Why can't you just say something nice and leave it at that?
It's just not in my DNA.
All right, fine. So Bryce, Calvin Ridley goes to the Jags. Obviously, he's suspended till the end of the season. So this is a trade that realistically doesn't mean anything in terms of value for the Jags until next year. But initial thoughts, walk us through what's going on with that. What are you hearing, thinking? What do you got?
Yeah, obviously this has been a move that's been, in the works for a while. Obviously last offseason, the Falcons were looking at trading Calvin Ridley, then he got suspended. We can talk about it's kind of BS. He got suspended for a year when other people's done worse things, but
no question about that.
But
it's another topic.
Yeah, but that was a big discussion, I think, within Falcons fan circles, was what was going to happen with Calvin Ridley. Because some people were thinking, oh, is it possible because of all this, immense fences, he comes back next year, he's a part of the receiving core. But I think the regime with Terry and Arthur Smith knew that they were still going to move off of him, and they finally found a deal that worked. And I think that's why they labeled the deal a very complex deal. It's a deal where, I think we get a 4th this year, and then next year is where we can really get some value. I believe, if I remember correctly, if he is reinstated by a certain date, it'll become a 5th round pick.
Correct.
If not, it'll just be a 6th.
Yep.
If he makes the team, it'll become
in 24. That's in 24.
Yeah, 24. Yeah, 24. It'll be I believe it'll be a 4th.
Yep.
If he hits, I think, a certain stats, it'll be a 3rd. Yep. And if the Jags sign him to an extension, it'll be a 2nd.
It'd be a 2nd. Yep.
This is got to be the most complicated trade in history. There are so many nuances to it.
At minimum, they get a 4th. The Falcons get a 4th at minimum.
I think it's a great trade. It's just it's just listening to it and trying to remember. Oh, well, this happens, then you get this, and if this happens, you get this. It's like my head's gonna explode.
Well,
there's so many pieces to this trade, and I give the Falcons credit for that. I think that was a genius move because they're guaranteeing themselves certain things, and if if things go a certain way, all right, it gets better. But at the worst, you kind of set up a nice worst case scenario. I actually really like that move. I don't think I've ever seen anybody do it. It's genius.
I think more teams might start doing it because it's smart. Because literally, think about it. Sometimes you have a player who has baggage, or there's something you're not certain about, and so teams don't want to give up a high draft pick for him. Right. So why don't we have conditions? Well, if he ends up not working out, you give us a low pick. If he ends up being what you want, we get a high pick. So it works. So that might be something you might start seeing teams do.
To me, it makes total sense.
And the cool thing about today's day and age is we get to a couple of years ago, we never really got to hear about language in contracts. We just heard such and such is traded. Ricky Williams traded to the Dolphins, and that's it. And here's the picks, and that's it. But now we get to hear about language in the deals, which some people might find boring. Me, I find that interesting because I like hearing the Kyler Murray stuff. I like knowing that exists as a
homework clause.
As a reporter, as a journalist, I love hearing that stuff because I like knowing that stuff happens.
It gives you stuff to report on. It gives you meat on the bone.
And also just to me as a sports person, it's fascinating. The fact, also you got to remember, how old's Calvin Ridley? He's 24, 25. He's really young. He'll basically be out of football for 2 years when he comes back next year.
It's the same as Deshaun Watson.
And
in terms of how long he has been since he played.
And the thing is, the Falcons spent a 1st rounder on him. You weren't really sure what he was going to be when Julio left. I had my doubts last year. I still do. Can he be the guy when Julio Jones type guys aren't taking off the coverage. Saw a little bit where he really couldn't handle it last year, but that was small sample size. And also, like,
judge.
the Jags are taking a risk because he had all that mental health stuff where he just stopped playing football. So now the Jags, like, are taking a risk on, will he be mentally,
ready.
healthy?
Will he be there?
Yeah, you're there. So there's a lot that the Jags are taking a risk on, but the Falcons also are going to want that compensation because he's a young guy. He's extremely talented. And if his head's right, and once he knocks the rust off, this is one of the most dynamic players. We can't forget he's one of the most dynamic players in football.
One of the better route runners
when
in
he's
football.
right.
And
he's got the speed
to back it up too. Don't forget that he's got plenty of speed.
He's
alongside all of that.
Dynamic. So there's a lot to this trade. I think Trevor Lawrence, if Cal Ridley's right, him and Trevor Lawrence are going to be amazing together.
They're going to have a great time.
Atlanta's, I said this last year. I said at the beginning in the preseason. I said it last night on the Sports Arena. Like we do a Who Knew I Knew section or segment. I said Atlanta Falcons because I said at the beginning of the season, I said they're doing it right. Last year, I saw so much positive with Arthur Smith, with the way they were building it. And then this year, like, they're just fighting hard in every game.
Yeah,
and they should be 5-3. If they potentially beat the Bucs, if not for that Grady Jarrett call, they get a chance to beat the Bucs down 6. Chance. Can't say they would have won. But, like, and they're still in first, even despite that. So, like, I know I'm rambling on.
Hold on.
So
them being in first is not something to start bragging about, only because the rest of that division has not been great. Not to take away from Atlanta, but the division hasn't necessarily been the cream of the crop.
But Atlanta
it's not like the NFC East.
When Smith took over last year, Atlanta, and they still have a lot of rebuilding to do, but they were really far behind, like the Saints, the Bucs, and the Falcons. I mean, the Saints, Bucs, and Panthers in that division, for my money, going into last year. And they've just come so far. Like, they're ahead of their rebuild right now. They're doing so well. I know it's just 4-4, but for a team that just had to get rid of Matt Ryan and Julio Jones and start over, Bryce, like, I mean, for me, like, I really like how far they've come in a year and a half. And losing Ridley, like,
The big thing for that really is just, they're coming into this year. I mean, there are many media circles that expect us to be a bottom 5 team, expected us to be competing for Stroud, competing for Young, not competitive. And, when I looked at how the team was being constructed over the offseason, one thing about Terry, he's been very masterful with how he's been building this team. He's signing a lot of guys on 1-year prove-it deals. So if they end up being, good, you got a quality player for a year, and then maybe you give them next year. Maybe you give him to an extension. We did that this past year with Cordell Patterson. We saw how that worked out for us.
I love Cordell Patterson.
I think he's one of the most perfect players to have on a rebuilding team.
Exactly.
He's a do-it-all kind of guy. He's not just a running back. He's a running back in a receiver's body.
Yep.
Yeah, you can say it. For sure.
I love him.
And so now you see kind of the blueprint here. We're one of the best rushing attacks in football. We have a 3-headed running back monster now. Yep. Even Mariota with his running ability.
Oh, he's great.
You have Kyle Pitts. You have Drake London. You got something you're building off of there.
They got to use Kyle Pitts. I haven't been fantasy. You got to use him. I'm tired of them not using him.
That's been a
head out of your ass and start using him. My gosh, sorry.
That's been an interesting topic of discussion. People obviously are kind of been back and forth on Arthur Smith because of that. Like, what's going on? Why are you drafting these pass catchers and not throwing? Obviously, like I said, that's another conversation about Mariota and everything because we drafted Ritter and then it's like Mariota, you don't trust him to throw the ball, et cetera, et cetera. But, I mean, I agree with that. You want to use Pitts. We finally did this past week against the Panthers. He played really well. And, I think overall this team is, we headed in the right direction and they're staying the course. They didn't feel like today they needed to make any major trades, even though they're first in the division. Right now, everything's just gravy. If they end up making the playoffs, fantastic. Because next year, I believe right now they have close to $80 million in cap next year, and then they have 9 picks. So they have plenty of money to, even if they make the playoffs, now you're like, we had a couple of players, we still have a draft class, maybe make a big trade with some of those picks. We're immediately now talking about Falcons maybe in contention next year if they make the right move, of course.
Something that I said going into the year that I loved is what they did with Marcus Mariota. They're not tied to him. Jake, they're not. No, he's just a stopgap.
I think he's a good, but I think he's got the chance to be their guy if he proves it this year. But you're right. I mean, you're not tied to him, which is the best part. If he makes you really relevant and he's good, okay, you revive his career and you keep him. Great. If he sucks, then you just say, all right, see you later. Just let him go. Just kind of like the Giants can do with Daniel Jones, right? This year, let him prove what he's worth. If he can get you to the playoffs, he can make you a winning team, do certain things. All right, let's keep him. Let's go. If he sucks,
and you're not paying
you
a
just cut
quarterback
ties and you don't care.
Yeah, you're not paying a quarterback $40 million, so you don't gotta live in that world.
You're not doing what the Colts are doing, which is paying an exorbitant amount of money for a quarterback to just sit him on the bench and do nothing.
Or trading a first for Carson Wentz last year.
John, I think there's one thing I can say about all three of our teams.
And then Washington goes and trades a first for Carson.
All three of our teams at this very moment, they're doing a great thing with their quarterbacks. Bryce and the Falcons, like I just said, if it doesn't work out, you just cut ties. Giants kind of the same boat, right? Jones works out, you keep him long term maybe, or a couple more years. Not, whatever. And John Tua, he's proving to me this year that, hey, I doubted him in past years. I think Mike McDaniel is a great coach for him. I think also having Tua and Jalen Waddle is just setting him up for ultimate success. I mean, and he's making good throws. It's not just that. He's using his legs, he's making throws.
It's
he's
crazy
proving to me he's a good quarterback, but all of us can say, yeah, our team's doing the right thing with our quarterbacks. We're not being the Colts and digging ourselves in a hole. And I keep using them as the example, but they're an easy target to just pick on. They screw up multiple times. This is not the first time.
Not to like touch on the Dolphins too much, but like remember the last 2 years where like if Tua went out and Ryan Fitzpatrick came in, like it wasn't like the Dolphins were like, oh no, Tua's out of the game. Like, what are we going to do?
Right.
They were just like, whatever. Ryan Fitzpatrick is throwing the ball better. Ryan Fitzpatrick's seeing the field better. And
it almost
a lot of times we were, not
say.
Me, but you guys were like, oh, Ryan Fitzpatrick's in. Like, they're better. Now, if Tua's out, everybody's like,
if Tua's out, if Teddy is in, though, I don't feel that way because I think you guys have one of the best backups in the league.
Right.
But I do prefer you guys with Tua, no doubt.
Yeah.
But right now, the aspirations for the Dolphins are going to the Super Bowl because you add Tyreek Hill and you got Jalen Waddle and you add all these pieces. Like, now your expectations are like, hey, like it's playoffs, but it's also like we expect you to compete with the Chiefs and the Bills. So, like now, if you look at the Dolphins and you take out Tua, it's like, oh crap, the world's falling.
The world's ending a little bit.
We need Tua, and like that's shows how much he's progressed, and that's kind of cool to see. Not just because he's my guy, but just see a young quarterback like we saw it with Josh Allen, where when he got Stephon Diggs, he went from like we're not sure to like okay, like
you're right.
That helped his development. Now he's arrived.
You're right. So talking more about the Dolphins, I want to touch on this quickly. And John, I was joking before the show, but it is an important trade. We can't ignore it. Bradley Chubb to the Dolphins. That is a huge trade. And I know you guys also got Jeff Wilson, I believe, correct?
That's a huge trade.
Chase Edmonds. I don't recall.
Get that bum out of here.
I don't recall where did you guys send Chase Edmonds?
Send him to Denver.
Okay.
They have 45 running backs.
It does. I mean, Latavius Murray, Chase Edmonds,
Melvin Gordon.
It's whatever. They're Broncos country. You're not riding anything unless you're riding out. Unless you're riding into the glue factory, you guys are going nowhere. Sorry, not sorry. Bradley Chubb, the Dolphins though, is a big move, and I love that move a lot. Defense has not been your biggest strong suit this season, John, as a Dolphin fan. I know that's been a little bit annoying, but I think Bradley Chubb. I gotta be honest. You get Chubb. That's pretty good. I was surprised they traded him because the Broncos made this all-in push. I felt like when you get Russell Wilson,
they did.
Things aren't going so well, so you trade one of your best defensive players.
I think the Broncos realize that they're not like when we went into the preseason, everybody was like, "Man, they got Russ. Like they were a quarterback away." Like I mean, for me, I said like they're not because. I'm not exactly sure what the receiver you're going to get out of Jerry Jeudy. Wasn't sure what you're going to get out of Sutton health-wise. The running backs, like Javonte Williams, I thought he was just going to be a stud this year.
And he would have been had he not gotten hurt.
And the line has been really bad. So, like, I wasn't all in on the Broncos because the AFC is so loaded. And I think the Broncos also realized with Hackett, like, they're further back than they expected, and they're not going to compete with these teams. They're locked in with Russ. They can't do anything about that. But everything else,
they're stuck
kind
with
of
him.
like
they have no options.
Yeah,
he's
so
theirs, and you can't get rid of
him. We're gonna start selling off pieces and kind of. I don't know what they're doing.
Yeah, I don't know what they're doing because you paid Russ all this money. You didn't trade any offensive stars, nor did you trade for any offensive players. So you're essentially saying your offense is just the same. All you did was add Chase Edmonds, and again,
Which
Chase
doesn't
Edmonds,
help you at all.
It's just another mouth to feed in that backfield. It doesn't do anything. To me, it doesn't make it doesn't move any mountains. It doesn't shift the tides. It just says you got a third down back is basically what they're planning to use him for. Congratulations. On defense, you get rid of him, and your defense was your best attribute. So I don't really it's one of those moves that I look at it, and maybe, Bryce, you're seeing something that we're not. What are they planning to do? Because to me, it just screams we're stuck with our offense the way it is in terms of having Russ, but we don't believe in ourselves, so we're going to downgrade our best option, our best asset in our defense. I don't really understand it.
We've seen teams do this before. I think the thing is that, with where they are in the season, I mean, that you trade a lot of stuff to get Russ, so you kind of have to attempt to get something back, and you got a first back. Because sometimes you can see that happening. Like, if you really aren't that close and you realize that, well, you got to kind of have to start trading guys. Because if you don't, you're not getting any closer and you have no picks. You're just setting yourself up to be bad for the next couple of years. So, I mean, it's kind of one of those things where I think that's what they're dealing with right now. Like, clearly they're still competitive. Like, they're still in the race. But we eventually think as the season continues, they'll falter off. And I think that's really the big thing there is that they probably feel like we got to get something back, at least have something we can grasp onto to continue to maybe try to build this team in the future. And this is a situation that even the Rams could be in now with all the issues they have with no picks. They might have to start trading guys because
the trade deadline passed and now they can't.
Exactly. So unless this offseason you ain't got no picks, it can't really improve the team.
Well, the thing I don't understand with this trade is, first of all, why would you trade with Miami? Because Miami gave up San Fran's pick.
Yeah,
and
I know.
San Fran's pick is going to be a late round pick. Like, let's face
it,
San Fran's going to be one of the best teams in the league record-wise, and they're going to go deep into the playoffs, probably divisional round, like somewhere around there, maybe NFC Championship, somewhere in there.
The CMC on that team, you never know. I mean,
but I'm just saying, like, the pick isn't going to be a top 5 pick.
No,
you know what I mean. It's not like the Broncos are getting a top 5 pick; they're getting like
you're guaranteed 20 plus.
Yeah, 20 plus.
It's better than having no pick.
That's fair.
But to Jake's point, is like you're giving up one of your best assets.
Yeah.
And I know Bradley Chubb isn't a superstar; like he really hasn't developed quite like they had hoped he would.
I think he's pretty good, John.
Right, he's pretty good, but
5.5 sacks in the season so far. I would say it's
what I'm saying is
level.
That offense hasn't done anything. So you rely heavily on the defense. And then you're just giving away Chubb for a late round first. You're getting a 4th, but you're giving a 5th. And then you get Chase Edmonds, who's been terrible.
I think where I disagree.
Running backs.
They shouldn't have traded Chubb. They should have tried to trade Jerry Jeudy.
But the
offense was bad anyway. There were plenty of teams in the receiver market. And I want to touch on that with the Packers in a minute because they didn't get anybody. Why wouldn't again? I don't know what the Packers' situation was. I'm not in the war rooms. I'm not in those meetings. Why didn't you try to offload Jerry Jeudy to the Packers for maybe you get a 2nd or a 3rd? Right? It's not a 1st, so I understand that. But you're still getting a comparable pick. And then I also think it's funny that the Broncos got rid of Chubb, but then they traded for another pass rusher.
So the only thing I will say,
they knew what they were doing. They got rid of him and replaced him with somebody that's not as good.
The only thing I will say is if you guys watched the Broncos against the Colts, that horrendous game, there's one thing that
hold on, John. Those are both teams that need to go to the glue factory.
Yeah.
Continue.
There's one thing that came out of that game. I really didn't know about this guy. If you guys watched that game and came out of it and said Baron Brown is that dude's a dude. Like that guy's a real man. Like maybe that's why they're getting rid of Bradley Chubb. And if you don't know about him, Jake, go watch that guy play against the Colts in that game. That guy's an absolute monster. They got him in 2021 out of Ohio State, and he has a motor like nobody's business. Like I could see why they got rid of Chubb because they're like, okay, we need a 1st, and Browning is a dude. So I understand that because this guy. He's
now the real question is, how will he perform without Chubb though? That's the question I then have.
But man, the guy looks like a stud.
I get it. And it also could have been a financial move too.
Yeah.
Remember, they tied up a lot of money in Russ, so they got to free up some money somewhere. This could just be a financial. We got to get some money too.
That could be. So, All right. I want to go over a couple trades. Don't need to talk on them. Just want to mention them real quick. Ravens, I think it was actually yesterday it happened, but still part of the trade deadline. Traded for Roquan Smith. Again, I think a phenomenal move. A defense needs the help. I think you might as well try and get some help if you can. I like the move. Another really big move today. Again, a move I love. TJ Hawkinson to the Vikings. For the price point they got him at.
Who do you like it for? Detroit or Minnesota?
I like it for both teams. I think
I don't.
I love it for the Vikings because Irv Smith is down. He's going to be on IR. He's going to be out, I said, for quite a while, so that stinks. I don't like it as much for Detroit. I still like it for them because I think it's partially a money thing. They don't want to have to pick up his contract next year, and so they're trying to save money. So I understand that, and that's why I kind of like it for them. I think the Vikings, it's great. You put him with Justin Jefferson, Adam Thielen, Dalvin Cook. He's a great blocking tight end, but he's also got some great receiving abilities, and again, replaces Irv Smith. I think that's a great move. Another move I like, of course, JV's not here. I wish he was. Chase Claypool to the Bears. I really like this move for both teams again. I
hate it for the Bears.
I love it for I like it. I love it for the Steelers. The Steelers, they're getting a second-round pick for Chase Claypool. I think the Bears overpaid on him. I like it for the Bears in the fact that it's good to get a receiver for Justin Fields because Darnell Mooney is not enough. Darnell Mooney is like
he's a nice slot guy, right?
He's your number 2, maybe your number 3 option.
Yeah.
He's not your number 1 option. I think Chase Claypool can be your number 2. If you force him to number 1, maybe he performs that way. We'll see. I'm not that confident. So I think the Bears overpaid on him, but I do like the idea. Justin Fields has played really well the last couple of weeks. I don't know if you guys have watched him. He has looked awesome. And I am the first to tell you, I thought he looked terrible at the beginning of the season. He looks great the last couple of weeks. He's really using his legs. That's why I like it for the Bears. I think it's a good move, and it helps them in that regard. And then I want to talk about the Packers and their lack of a wide receiver deal, which I do want to discuss for a couple minutes. But Nyheim Hines to the Bills. I know there were picks involved. Also, Zach Moss goes back to the Colts. If you're a JT owner in fantasy, congratulations. That's pretty great for you. If you are a Bills offensive player owner, it doesn't really affect you because Nyheim Hines is, unless you own Devin Singletary in fantasy, which you do, I mean, he shouldn't be more than really like flex play for you. I got to be honest, whatever. Nyheim Hines will make a nice play in that offense. I like the idea of it. He's a good pass catching down back at the very least. He is a good runner. I prefer him over Zach Moss, certainly. So I like the move and the fact that, hey, it's an extra guy in that offense. So what was already a dynamic offense, you make it more dynamic. Why not? No reason not to. The Bills are obviously going all in. Yes, sir.
My favorite trade, and nobody's really talked about it. If you know anything about William Jackson from the Commanders,
it was a great pick.
The guy is absolutely a stud at corner. And he asked for a trade out. I was hoping that the Dolphins would get him because we desperately needed quarterback help. Like, I like the Bradley Chubb move. I like the Jeff Wilson move. I understand both of them. But William Jackson was the guy I wanted the most. I wanted Kareem Hunt, I'll be honest.
We'll talk about him in a minute.
But depth-wise, like, the Dolphins hurt at cornerback so bad. And William Jackson's a really, really good player, really good corner. And the Steelers got him for a steal. Like, they basically got him for free from the Commanders. And that's what I mean. Pittsburgh's helping out their defense.
You know why they got that, John? Because he wanted out of Washington so bad. Yeah. They knew they had to trade him. And
but that's a steal for the Steelers.
It's a great pick.
Absolutely brilliant pick. And it's going under the radar, but I think it's the best move so far.
It was a pretty good pick. I still think the McCaffrey one was probably the best just because it's short term.
I'm just saying, like,
it opens up the window for them to win a championship this year.
I know. I'm just saying what the Steelers gave up, which was basically nothing for really good cornerback. Like, that is a steal in its own right. You're not giving up
a maximum of like a 6th pick, I think.
For a really good player. Yeah. That's a smart move.
Oh, I agree. I do like that a lot. All right. I want to talk about the Packers, and it kind of goes in with the fact that there were actually 2 players that were not traded, so we'll kind of make this a dual conversation. We'll talk about both. Brandon Cooks, Kareem Hunt, both not traded. Brandon Cooks is pissed, apparently. He basically, was going on Twitter talking about his feelings about, you guys gave me this hope, essentially, that I was going to come out, and you didn't trade me. Not cool. Those are not his exact words. I don't have his exact words in front of me, but that was the gist. And the Packers don't trade for a wide receiver, so I want to turn this to you, but, let's start with the Packers side of this. If you're Aaron Rodgers, how pissed are you right now? Because you knew you had a receiver. You didn't trade for one. If I'm him, I'm probably livid, but I'm curious what you guys are thinking he's probably feeling.
I mean, Aaron's been dealing with this for years. I mean, when was the last time Green Bay really went out of their way to get a guy? It's not really shocking.
You're right.
I think
But
Jimmy
they had
Graham was
when
the
they had
last time
when
they
I-
did that.
You know, when they had Devontae Adams, at least it kind of masked the fact that they needed a little bit because it's like I got one guy. Now he's got nobody. He's got who? Romeo Dobbs, Alan Lazard, Sammy Watkins. Come on.
I feel like the front office just does what the front office do. They're trying to get a good deal, and so they're like, oh, we don't want to give up too much to get him. And then the problem is like, are you trying to win a Super Bowl or not? Do you want to be competitive or not? If you don't think you can be competitive and you're giving up on the season, then okay, don't make the move. But if you truly, especially with Aaron there, who wants to win, if you're trying to be a Super Bowl team or you want to at least be competitive again, you have to just pull the trigger. And you had receivers out there for the taking.
So
it's not like you didn't have people ready.
So let me ask you this, because I just thought it just came to me and I thought it might be an interesting thing. If you think Aaron Rodgers is going to play next year, if you're the Packers, why wouldn't you have called the Falcons and said, hey, we'll give you a fourth for Calvin Ridley?
Sure.
You know what I mean? Because think about it. If Aaron Rodgers is playing next year and Calvin Ridley is playing with Aaron Rodgers for a fourth-round pick or even third or second, whenever it becomes, I feel like that's a steal. For Aaron Rodgers and Calvin Ridley together would be absolutely fantastic next year.
Complimentary piece.
And I don't think Rodgers would be retiring if he knows Calvin Ridley's going to be there next year, and this year's kind of on its way to being a lost season, at least.
I mean, the issue is that, I mean, the way Rodgers is, like, he's fed up with the front office. You don't know what Rodgers is going to do this offseason. We could be on Rodgers watch this offseason. So you make Rodgers watch all the time. Come on.
It's
and
a
then
Packers
boom, he's
thing.
like, you know what? I hate
quarterback
this
thing.
place. I'm retiring. And then boom, now it makes no sense, and now you're stuck with Jordan Love. So it's like you kind of can't make a year from now trade because you don't know what's going to happen with Aaron.
Right.
So but even still, I mean, Calvin Ridley. I mean, you really don't have receivers, and having Calvin Ridley next year, I think would have been nice.
That's why I was disappointed they didn't go for Cooks, and I don't know if they did or did not. But the fact that he wasn't traded, my guess was Cooks was going to like one of like three teams. I thought the Giants were in the mix because they need a receiver desperately, and I know Joe Shane was certainly fielding offers and talking to guys about it. He just had to find his right price. Obviously, he didn't find the Packers or the Chiefs, and the Chiefs traded for Kadarius Toney. So they felt like, okay, look, that's our extra guy that we want. Totally fine. That was what made them happy. Fine by me. I don't really care. They got their guys, so they kind of come off the table. So it's now Giants or Packers. And I figured the Packers would be aggressive in trying to get him. I figured they'd be like, look, Rodgers needs a reliable receiver, and who better to get Brandon Cooks? I mean, he's one of the most reliable receivers you could probably get that was going to potentially be available. To me, that figure, like, yeah, no brainer. Let's do it. Like, get Rodgers a guy you can trust. Lazard becomes your number two. And then you're talking about Watkins or Dobbs or somebody else being your number three. It's a little bit easier because Lazard is good. He'll get you some touchdowns. He's going to make some plays, but he's not a number one. He's a number two. He's kind of like that Chase Claypool where, you can force him to be number one, but he's not really built to necessarily be number one. He's more of a number two, and that's cool. That's fine. That's what he does.
So I just thought of this. Another one, because I'm trying to think of like Packers, scenarios where like we're helping out Aaron Rodgers in this scenario, which I mean that pains me because Aaron Rodgers is a person. So I'm trying to think of bad teams that are looking to sell pieces.
DJ Moore, but the Panthers for whatever reason won't trade him.
And the Panthers are technically still in this thing for the division. They had a chance to beat you guys.
Okay, John, sure.
But yeah. So I mean, they're a bad team. There's so many mouths to feed. What about the Raiders? What about if the Packers would have called for Hunter Renfrow? Could you imagine a nice slot guy, Hunter Renfrow, and Aaron Rodgers, a reliable guy that you can count on to move the chains for you, which Rodgers doesn't have. Kind of like when Brady had Wes Welker and Julian Edelman and Danny Amendola. What do you guys think with, like, just as a random scenario, there's so many mouths to feed in Vegas. Like, not everybody's eating right now. Darren Waller's not. Hunter Renfro's not. It's just Devontae Adams and Josh Jacobs. If you get Renfro out of there from that bad team in Vegas, because they are a bad football team overall, and you give Rodgers a weapon like that that's reliable, feel like you probably could have got him for like a fourth, maybe a third, somewhere in that ballpark. And he's not. He's on a small, like,
John,
not
you
a big
say
deal.
this. I thought the Raiders were going to trade somebody today, and it wasn't him though. I thought Josh Jacobs is on his way out, not because he's bad. He's great, but because they don't have him for next year. So you sell him to a team like the Bills, who is a rental. You give him to a team that needs a running back. He becomes their bell cow running back. You could just send Devin Singletary back the other way and maybe a pick. And I was really thinking that would happen because if you put Josh Jacobs on this Bills team, it's over. And it's the same thing we've been saying for years, which is the Bills' biggest need is not receiver, it's not defense, it's not a quarterback. They just need a bell cow back. And Devin Singletary is nice, but I don't trust him to be my number one workhorse, level guy. I don't see him being a Derrick Henry or Josh Jacobs or Saquon Barkley where he is that dude, or Nick Chubb where he had taken over the backfield. I see him as like, he's a 1-2 down back and you got a 3 down, you have a third down back, somebody else, change of pace. I just didn't see that.
I'm just glad you didn't say the Packers go and trade back for Devontae Adams.
No. Hey, that would have been really funny, but I didn't think that was going to happen. No, I really did think Josh Jacobs had an outside chance of getting moved, and the Bills were the first team that came to mind because of that. But I like the idea. I certainly like it. I just think, again, Bryce, you kind of said it. I don't know where Aaron Rodgers is going to be next year. I don't know. He's every offseason we're talking about him.
McAfee podcast, the revelation.
Every year. It's like, where's Aaron Rodgers going?
Let me ask you this. Like, if you're the Packers, because we're talking about this, why would you go and trade and give away assets right now? I know you, help out Aaron Rodgers, but you got to think about the other 52 guys on the roster. And,
because they think they can win, John.
Right. Maybe they don't. Maybe they are much like the Broncos. Maybe much like the Broncos, they realize that we're not a receiver away. We're not just one piece away. We're further away than we think we are.
If that's the case, then why would you have re-signed Rodgers for more money?
Because
if you're not going to win, if you think it's not now.
I think that they thought that, much like the Broncos, like we just said about them, in the preseason, maybe they had Super Bowl aspirations, and at some point during this season, both teams looked at their team and said, and even the Raiders, teams like that looked at their team and said, we had aspirations for the Super Bowl, but actually we're not that good. And you have to come to that realization. And if you're at that realization, you have Rodgers who's almost 40 years old, and you don't know what he's going to do. Why are you giving up draft picks to go and get a guy, probably a rental guy, for half a season when you're not close to the Eagles?
Obviously,
right, you're not close to the Cowboys. You're not close to the Niners. You're not close to the Vikings. So, why would you do that, Bryce?
It's one of the tough decisions that anybody in the front office has to make, because you like I said, we talked about the Rodgers. You don't know what he's going to do next year. You don't want to sell and then get burned. Even though you see that teams that are trying to win now are selling. Dolphins sold to win now. The Rams have sold to win now. 49ers sold to win now. But that's because they feel like they're all player away, to get there. Packers, if they still had Devontae Adams, then you can maybe make the argument, okay, they could get another player, then sell and be it. But they took away Adams. Now that puts you back another player, maybe 2 players maybe worth. And now you're seeing that it's not resulting in the victories, in the wins, and you're dealing with a disgruntled quarterback, and the Packers on front office has always been conservative. They've always wanted to build through the draft. They don't like signing high-priced free agents. They want to find gap fillers. They don't want to find real solutions because they feel like, we're good enough still on these parts of the ball. Defensively, they were supposed to be stronger. Obviously, they're not as strong as they expected to be. And then offensively, you see that it's not working. And now the Vikings are running away with the division. Now they're still in the wild card. The NFL's been kind of stacked.
That NFC is bad outside.
The NFC is not good.
It's been a very stacked, but you're still in it. But is it worth giving away the future for? And I think that's what the Packers are having to look at right now. Obviously, you're hearing all this talk about, they were hoping that the defense was good so the offense can eventually get there. But the thing is that, listen, they're drafting guys, but here's the thing. You're not hitting on them. They're not stars. They may become decent. Lazard is decent. There's decent guys.
Again, guys he's a number 2.
But not game changers.
I'm with you. So, all right. Only other thing I wanted to talk about football-wise, I want to make this a little quick because we do have some other topics I know we want to talk about. The other guy that wasn't traded, again, somebody I figured we traded, and again, back to the Bills. It was same conversation that I just had with you guys, same thought process. Kareem Hunt, no trade. I figured he would get traded. He's a free agent after this season. Going 23. He's unrestricted free agent. I figured they would have traded him. I don't know. He's got a lot of talent. They don't need him. Nick Chubb is clearly the bell cow. You don't really need anybody anyone in terms of his value. You don't need that. You need a Zach Moss, right? Like that's the kind of guy. It's like, yeah, okay, we'll take that. Why? He'll be a change of pace. He's fine. You put him in for a couple
saw a little
plays.
bit of change of pace last year with Dearness Johnson. Like
Yeah,
small sample size, but he was pretty
That's what I'm saying.
solid.
Sure.
He was pretty solid as
Okay,
that backup.
I picked Zach Moss because I think Bills could have been a suitor and it would have made plenty of sense.
They got their guy in Dearness Johnson. They really like him, and he was good last year in spurt, like the small chances he got. So like I don't understand this trade.
Apparently, they signed last night because Kareem Hunt played more than he has in the last couple of weeks. Last night in the football game, so that might have been a sign that they were like, "Oh, we'll probably just hang on to him just because you're playing him more." Because if you think you're going to trade him, you're going to scale back the snaps to make sure he doesn't get hurt. So maybe the Browns feel like they can still. I mean, they may feel like we can still be competitive if we can just get close to 500 before Deshaun gets back. We got two backs, we got receivers, we got him. Hey, let's make one last run at it, and then we'll just hope for the best this offseason.
I don't know, but I figured he was one of those players that I was like, nope, he's getting shipped off, and I'm not even going to be remotely surprised when it happens, and it didn't. So
apparently they fielded calls on him, but nothing. According to the reports, nothing came close to them even getting any deal. Like the talks didn't go anywhere with anybody in the talks that they had.
Which you know what that sounds like to me? They probably were asking too high. People were going too low for their liking.
Mm-hmm.
He's a rental. That's what he is.
You're not going to pay more. You're not going to pay more than a fourth or a fifth for Kareem Hunt. Like that's the most you're going to pay.
Because what I would do, kind of, we talked about the other trade. If you sign him long term, it gets bumped up to maybe a fourth.
Yep.
Or from a fourth to a third, maybe. But
you're not paying a second.
No, you're not even. You're not even considering a third, unless it's that condition of we sign him long term. That's it, because he's just a rental. That was it.
And he's a running back. Running backs
have a short shelf life. You're right.
Yeah.
So all right, I want to move on to let's go a little basketball. Steve Nash was fired today. Thoughts on this move, gentlemen? I'll start with Bryce. I know, Bryce, you're pretty big into basketball, bigger into basketball than the two of us are, so I want to start with you on this. What are you thinking?
I mean, it was one of those situations that you kind of saw inevitably happening. Obviously, Kevin Durant was literally requesting a trade this offseason because of him, and I just didn't see how it would work out. People always said the playbook coming out of timeouts is, all right, just find Kyrie or KD and let's see what happens.
Which,
I mean,
I can call that up. You can call that up. John can call it.
He didn't go through the coaching tree to get to that spot. He just was boom, retirement. Hey, you want to be a head coach?
Okay.
It was just nothing.
Just looked in the crowd. They're like, "Hey, who wants to be?"
I was like, "Oh, there's Steve Nash. He was pretty good at basketball. Yeah, you come on.
You want to be the head
he had
coach?
a great
Sure,
IQ. He could be a head coach.
Yeah.
And it didn't work out. And now we're hearing they're targeting Ime Udoka. They're probably thinking to themselves,
that's a weird situation.
They're thinking, wait, they took the Celtics to the finals last year, and all they did was add him. So he'll do the same for us. That's exactly the way they're thinking. He'll just come over and we'll become a finals team like the Boston Celtics did.
Like that's not how life works.
When I heard that today, Bryce, like I heard on the radio that they were going at that he was going to sign with them, and I'm like, wait a minute, he's still under contract with the Celtics, and apparently the Celtics are allowing this, and I'm like, what world do we live in where you're just like,
he's suspended, so they're like, go ahead.
Hey,
whatever.
Rookie coach that took us to the NBA Finals last year, like. Go ahead and just walk to, one of our rivals with Kevin Durant and Kyrie. Like,
it's so stupid.
That makes no sense. Like, he still knows how to coach.
Yeah, it's a weird situation. But they probably, knowing Boston, they're probably just like, you know what? Well, there's no point of keeping him here because it's not helping anyone out.
Right.
It's just like,
him being there is not
keeping him here, leaving him suspended. Let's get over it.
Flip him.
Move on. If Nets need a head coach, fine. Whatever.
Yeah.
They may not be asking for any draft compensation, but they're just like, you can take him. We'll let you have him. You can see what happens. And then it's hard. Because remember, he's becoming, I'm assuming he'll become the coach during the season.
That would be
hard to kind of change the offense, change philosophy.
That's
while you're also going on road trips the next day. So
There's not a
Bryce, that's the big thing I was just thinking was if you were going to fire Steve Nash, which feels like kind of was a ticking time bomb, right? It was a matter of when, not if.
Yep.
Why did you do it in the middle, like that beginning of part of the season? That you're just starting the season, the first few. Why did you do it then? Why didn't you just do it
like since it is the beginning of part of the season?
My thought is why didn't you just do it like 2 months ago?
Eventually get there.
Rip that Band-Aid off now.
Yeah. Why didn't you just do it 2 months ago? Why get to this point? What was did you expect him to just bring this team together and then go, well, our stars are upset with him, but
I wonder
winning,
if it was
so
a PR move. I wonder if it was a PR move because if you do it when Kevin Durant requests a trade, because Kevin Durant didn't want Steve Nash to be his coach, he wanted him to be fired. So if you do it when Kevin Durant's asking for a trade, it looks in the PR wise, it looks like you're giving Kevin Durant his way. But I know, but I'm saying when you do these PR things, if you do it when Kevin Durant's asking for a trade, it looks like you're giving Kevin Durant what he wants. If you do it a little bit after and kind of everything is going by the wayside, it doesn't quite look like Kevin Durant got his way. Like that's what I know it sounds crazy, but that's the way these PR moves work with teams.
You're talking to someone that does PR, John. I know. The way I look at this is you should have fired him after the failures of last season. You knew your people, your team were not happy with him. Things were not what they were supposed to be. You were supposed to win the East. You didn't even do that. And now, yes, of course, Philly had a good season. No question that Philly played well. But you should have been like a 50-plus win team based on all the expectations. You didn't reach that. It's the same thing I said about the Yankees. Why should Boone be fired? Oh, well, you could say he made it to the playoffs. That's not the goal. Playoffs are not the goal. And when you fail at meeting your goals, you got to make a change sometimes. So to me, it's like waiting till now. What does it do? It doesn't do anything. You make it an excuse that you could do it now. To me, that's just fine. It saves face maybe a little bit. You're 2-5. You played 7 games. Now you think is the right time to do it. To me, it looks just as stupid because I'm like, you played 7 games, guys. You have a long season. It's 7 games.
Weird situation.
It just makes no sense. It sounds like they just waited for things to fail, and they're like, oh, well, when things go to garbage, we'll just get rid of them then. And it's just like, well, that was a stupid waste of a couple games that you could have won. You could have won those games with a better coach, and this would have all gone so much easier.
Yeah,
simple as
that's
that.
true. That's
simple as that. But all right, John, I know there's something you want to talk about. I've ignored it for as long as I can. We got about I'll call it 7-ish minutes.
Yeah.
Take it away, sir.
Yeah, man. I mean, we got to talk about the World Series.
You have to.
Yeah, we have to. I mean, the World Series is happening. Like,
just kidding.
Astros.
John,
Phillies.
I'm loving this. John,
so what do you
got?
got?
4-0 tonight.
4-0. Okay, I was going to ask you what the score is exactly.
Yeah.
So how do we feel about the World Series? Who do we think is going to win? Like, do you think Philly has any shot at winning this thing?
Yeah, I think Philly.
Yeah. I mean, you kind of saw last year with the Braves. If you get hot and your pitching's hot and your hitting's hot, you can win it all. I mean, that's kind of the way they always say any type of playoff sport is. If you're hot and playing your best stuff, you have a chance to win. I mean, remember, Houston was the best team a lot of people thought in baseball last year for most of the year, got to the World Series. They faced a team that was hot, and they lost to them. Right now, they're in the exact same situation, playing a team that's hot. You see Philly, even though they're down 4 runs, 5 runs, they'll come back and beat you. So they clearly showed you they're resilient. They got rid of Joe Girardi. Boom, that changed the team, made a couple of additions. Bryce Harper's a star. I mean, this series could easily go 7 to me.
I can't argue with Bryce.
I just don't see how Philly wins this thing. The only knock against Houston is they have Justin Verlander, who's the worst pitcher in the history of the World Series. He has.
All right, in history of World Series.
In the history of the World Series,
in history of the playoffs, it's Clayton Kershaw.
No, but the World Series, out of every minimum 3 games pitched, he has the worst ERA in the history of the fall class.
That's fair.
Nobody's ever had a worse ERA. So, like, I love Justin Verlander. He's going into the Hall of Fame one day, but he's the worst pitcher we've ever seen in the World Series.
Look.
So, like, that's not something I'm encouraged by when it comes to Houston. But other than that, like, Houston's just an animal. I can't see Philly winning this. They're not the same as the Braves. Like the Braves were last year were better than the Phillies are this year, in my opinion. I just can't see Philly pulling this off. They gotta. I said this last night. They have to win all 3 games in Philly to win this thing. They're not winning it in Houston. They rely on the crowd.
They already won a game in Houston. What do you mean?
No, I know, but the World Series winning it all. You got to fit. You got to get over the hump.
I'm going to disagree with you, and I'm going to agree with Bryce. I think Philly certainly has a chance. I'm going to tell you why. It's real simple. Do you know how many championships the Astros have had since 2015, which was their first playoff appearance? Before that, they hadn't been since 2005. So I'm starting at 2015. One. They got 1, 2017. In 15, they lost in the division series. In 16, they missed the playoffs. 17, they win the World Series. 18, they lose in the championship series. 19, they lose in the World Series. 2020, they lose in the championship series. 21, they lose in the World Series. You noticing a pattern there? They don't win in the World Series a lot. You know why? They won 1. And you know when that series was? Does anybody remember what happened to the Astros in 2017? Because
they beat the Yankees.
No. In the season as a whole, what happened? Something came out. Does anybody
won
remember?
The World Series?
Oh, that's right. They cheated that year. So my point is, it's very simple. The Astros cheated.
But you're not mad.
Forget that I'm mad. I don't like the teams cheat at all. I'm pissed. When the Yankees got caught apparently doing something as well, I was just as upset. I think there's
and the Red Sox. Let's not forget the Red Sox.
Of course, but I'm picking my own team, saying it swings to my own team, and I'm not afraid to admit it. But the Astros haven't won without cheating, to our knowledge, at least, in terms of they haven't won a World Series, and the only season they did win one was when they were cheating, and we know they were. I don't think the Astros can win a World Series without cheating. How about that?
They already had rumors coming out after Game 2
Yep.
that the video of the pitcher doing all the wiping, and they were like,
I'll tell you this.
Getting it off his wrist. And
the Astros already cheated in this series as well.
Like, dang.
I don't know if you guys watched Game 1. Maybe you didn't. They cheated in this series. Okay.
Now, apparently the bat thing,
forget that. No, forget that. Just completely forget that for a second. The bat thing, forget that was probably a way of cheating. Completely forget that for a second. Martin Maldonado, same guy. He leaned into a pitch. He put his elbow and intentionally tried to get hit by a pitch. It wasn't like, he turned his body and it was an accident where his elbow went forward and he gets hit by a pitch. No, he leaned forward, physically attempting to run into the pitch. And the ump was like, no, you ran into it, jerk. You're not going to get called hit by pitch.
You're not getting the walk.
It was like, dude, what are you doing? You can't do that. So the Astros are notorious for cheating. They clearly can't stop doing it. They're like a gambling addict or a drug addict. They just can't stop. They are so enamored and addicted to it. They physically aren't able to stop. The Astros got a cheating problem. They just won't stop doing it. It doesn't matter, though, because they cheated once. They got caught. They haven't cheated like that, to our knowledge, like that since. They haven't won since they did that. I think the Phillies are hot. I think they are playing phenomenal baseball. They're playing it tonight. They crushed Lance McCullers tonight. Got 4 runs on him. It's currently 4-0. They're absolutely just destroying them at the moment. We're going into the 5th as we speak. I think the Phillies win this. I think it's going to take 7 games, possibly. I'm not saying it's going to be like a 4-1 series win, and the Phillies just crush them.
That's the only way they can win.
But my thoughts are this, John, and you kind of said it, and I'll leave my thoughts at this. Let's say it goes to Game 7, right? Who are you putting in Game 7 most likely?
I think Verlander probably goes 4-7, I would imagine, right?
Right, and I agree with that. So that's why I asked you, because you brought up Verlander. I don't trust Verlander in that game at all.
No, but you have to roll with him.
No, I'm just saying, I'm saying as someone that's analyzing this, I don't trust him. I think it's the right move to put him in there, no doubt. He's your ace. Yeah. I'm not saying you don't. If it were me, if I were the coach, I'm putting in Framber Valdez. I think you can't. Nobody can touch him right now. He's been electric.
Apparently not.
But hey,
substance.
Hey, I don't know. I'm just saying. But I would put him. But they're going to put Verlander, which gives, I think, the advantage to Philly. I think Philly might win this in 7 games. I think another, as weird as it sounds, another NL East team that's somehow not the Mets manages to beat the Astros in the World Series, and the Astros try to cheat, and they can't do it, and that's why cheaters never win and winners never cheat. And the one time they did cheat, they got caught, and they shouldn't have a championship as a result. But that's a whole other problem for another day, and that is all I have to say on that subject. Thank you very much.
All right, where can we find everybody, Jake?
No, I got to start with Bryce. First of all, Bryce is the guest, so he gets to start it off. And second of all, it's got to finish with me because I got my little spiel at the end. How it goes.
Yes, sir. Y'all can catch me on all social media, Brycey_2K. Do Atlanta Hawks, Atlanta Falcons shows on YouTube at Bryce Lewis if you want to look that up. Also, you go on my website, Brycey2ksports.com if you want to look up any articles that I've also written on both of those teams as well.
John.
Yep. Blue Hawks 13. That's Sideline Sports. Make sure you check out our YouTube, all of our channels, all the great shows every day of the week, Sunday through Saturday. Miami Dolphins are 5-3. Make sure you don't forget that because we're on our way. Don't you overlook us.
Giants are 6-2, so they're better than the Dolphins.
They're fraudulent.
I said record-wise. Watch your mouth.
Fraudulent.
Watch your mouth.
Bill Parcells is wrong when he says you are what your record says you are. Anyway, your turn.
Then that means you guys are not really 5-3. Okay, thank you.
We're better than that.
No, you're not. Good try. All right. Anyway, I'm going to mute John because I don't want to hear his voice, and he's going to just keep talking over me. So you guys can find me on Twitter at Jake_Malik. John, you can tell me out of order. I don't care. I'm talking about the show, man. As always, on Twitter, Jake_Malik. You can find me there. I'm, just look me up on all the socials. That's where I usually am. Just look up my name. More importantly, as you see scrolling across the bottom of your screen, you can find Sideline Sports in the following places. Instagram and Twitter is Sideline Sport 1. YouTube and Facebook is Sideline Sports. We are on Instagram, TikTok, DBTV. Check us out there. We're on all social media platforms, Spotify, all that good stuff. Check us out, and we'll see you next time, everybody. Have a good one.